Okay everyone, I've kind of got my groove on and finally found the courage to actually do a movie review. For those who have been subscribed to me through the Media Works, I'm just going to take this opportunity to apologise for the amount of time it's taken me to get a review out since I started posting videos in late January. Now, I'm not the most literate person in the world. It's taken me around 2.5 weeks and 4 rewrites to get this far, so I hope it turns out okay. Breaking new boundaries is another thing that I'm not quite used to, so I'll need a little time to settle into this section of the channel. So as I'm writing this, reflecting over my final draft of the review that I've undertaken, I can't stop thinking about how bad this may turn out, so I'll apologise once again just in case I cause an outrage. If you get to this part of my foreword, good luck and try not to laugh too hard. Thanks for your time. So here we are with Avengers Infinity War. 10 years in the making, 18 movies later and 21 warranted heroes, and you have the latest instalment to one of, if not one of the biggest movie franchises in modern day cinema. I think given that there have been a couple of regrettable movies amongst them all, such as The Incredible Hulk starring Edward Norton and the under-par Avengers Age of Ultron, it's fair to say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has accepted the fact that they have made mistakes in the past and are not afraid of trying something a little different. Take for example Guardians of the Galaxy from 2014. Everything since Age of Ultron has been solid stuff. So the basic story goes a little like this. Thanos, our main villain, comes out to play to collect all the Infinity Stones and destroy the universe for what he thinks is the greater good. The huge ensemble of heroes, starring everybody, are out to oppose this act of heresy. Aside from all the usual characters we've seen over the last 10 years, we get to see the lesser heroes get their time to shine. We saw in the last Marvel movie before this one, the movie Black Panther, T'Challa's General Okoye, played by the wonderful Danai Gurira of the Walking Dead series, and other works such as All Eyes on Me and Mother of George, once again reprises her role to great effect. Benedict Wong, who also returns as Stephen Strange's right-hand man Wong, who we've seen in Ridley Scott's The Martian and Prometheus, turns in quite an important role in the movie and is also a pretty cool character as well. Then we have, and certainly not least, the great Pom Klementieff, who wowed us as Mantis from the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We get to see a lot more of what she's capable of in this movie. As far as Infinity War goes on a storyline basis, we finally get to see the mighty Thanos in action. From the post-credits scene of the first Avengers movie, the Mad Titan has more or less been a mystery character until his appearance in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. We get the inkling of his agenda in Guardians, and now we see it come into play here in Infinity War as the driving force of the story. We see a very different side to Thanos in this film, which is heavily utilised throughout. He feels a little more human and down to earth than we kind of expected, even though we all know who he is and what he is capable of. The reasons for his agenda are very clearly made in the context of it all, and we can relate to some degree why he's doing what he's doing. He knows he doesn't have to do what he's doing, but feels it is for the greater good. Now, as I predetermined in a previous video, the choice to cast Josh Brolin has really paid off. He was fantastic in his role as the Mad Titan, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with him in part 2. Tony Stark and Stephen Strange more or less drive the latter side of the storyline, helping us understand the real urgency to the situation Earth faces as the film progresses. As odd as this may sound, I kind of liked the on on-screen chemistry between Robert and Benedict. The Russo brothers' take on this working relationship does have significance and a very real feel to it. Tony now being the more casual and maybe not so egotistical as he has been in previous outings, and Stephen, who pretty much sort of takes over Tony's personality from the other movies as the more arrogant and self-assured hero who thinks he can't do no wrong. So when these two finally meet in the first act of the movie, along with Bruce Banner, who has just arrived back to Earth from being out in space from the events of Thor Ragnarok, he comes back terrified, explaining things in great detail as to what is going to happen over the next couple of hours of the film. Now, I do also feel that in some places of the movie, some of the characters that we do see have taken a slight personality turn, which I think, in my opinion, isn't really a bad thing. The writing team for this movie, who included Christopher Markin and Stephen McFeely, give us a more roundness to some of our heroes, which is very subtle yet noticeable. Star-Lord is a perfect example of this, and I think it was a great addition to his character, considering his position throughout certain points of the movie. Everybody in the film is also very good, with a couple of standout performances from Zoe Saldana as Gamora, Lizzie Olsen as Scarlet Witch and Wanda Maximoff, and Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, also known as Captain America. However, the sheer amount of characters we have in this, kind of make it difficult to follow in places for newer fans of the franchise. I did a count, and there are 21 heroes in the movie, and that's quite an achievement, as the Russos have done very well to give us multiple sub-stories between characters that have their place in the movie without forgetting the main story ahead. This kind of justifies the deaths that we see throughout the movie. Not to give away any spoilers on this subject, as key deaths have been the driving force of curiosity in the months leading up to the release of Infinity War. Now, as I was preparing for this commentary-based review, I felt the need to go over the actors who have graced the screens for the last 10 years that the MCU has been around, and I couldn't help but think, wow. So I'm going to give a shout out to the person involved in this fabulous list of actors, and that person is casting director Sarah Halley Finn. Without you, Sarah, this franchise may have gone the other way, so thank you, not just from me but from everybody else who has followed and loved the universe since Iron Man in 2008. The entertainment value is also very high due to the brilliant set pieces we see in the film. Straight from the off in the opening sequence, we're treated to a face-off we would usually expect at the end of the movie, and this kind of really sets the tone of the film up really nicely, and it comes as no surprise that by the end of this 2.5 hour epic, we're all sort of thinking, where are they going to go with this now, based on the events that have unfolded throughout. The action doesn't feel over the top, and even though they are on such a grand scale, we're not bored by the end of the action sequences. They're very well edited and slotted into the film very nicely, with brilliantly executed moments of drama to break the fight up, taking the purpose of the scene and relax a little. The Titan battle scene is a perfect example of this, as Tony, Stephen and the Guardians square off against Thanos. In this department, it's near perfect, it's well balanced and directed. The 2.5 hour running time is just right, give or take a couple of character developments, which really, not so much of an issue, as they have already been established in previous Marvel movies. This brings me back to the point I made earlier when I spoke about the new fans of the MCU. It would probably be a good idea for you guys to start from the beginning with Iron Man 1 from 2008. Sorry. Now Now, the only real gripe I have with this movie is the sheer volume of superheroes. Trying to bring all 21 into one movie is one hell of a task, but Anthony and Joseph have done a really good job to give everybody the part and still be able to make the movie flow nice and evenly throughout this 2.5 hours running time. In my opinion, some of the heroes, even though they did have a good sub-story to back them up in the movie, didn't necessarily need to be included in this first instalment of Infinity War. Which brings me to this, and I know what I'm about to say is rather controversial. My prime example of this is Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Even though Peter Parker is the heart and soul of Infinity War and is also the standout performance in the movie, I couldn't help thinking that he was unnecessary. Now, I'm not saying they should have left him out. I personally feel it would have been a better move if the Russos brought Tom Holland's character into the latter half of the story, next year's concluding part to this being the subject. There are a couple of other story and character arcs I felt could have waited until next year as well, but due to spoilers, which I don't particularly want to give away for the small majority that have not seen Infinity War yet, I'll leave it at that, because I feel I'm going to give too much away, even though with the timing of this review going out at the back end of the movie's run at the box office, most people will have already seen it. So, to conclude on all of this, I had a great time with Infinity War. The story is convincing and coherent, everybody works well together, even with the little screen time they get to cover their places within the movie. Thanos makes this movie as real as you could get, especially for a madman with what seems to be a real purpose towards his goals, and action sequences that need to be seen to be believed, all of which takes this movie to another level. Infinity War for me gets a 9 out of 10. So that just about concludes it for this video, guys. I really appreciate you taking your time out to hear me rambling on about this movie. It's been a long process. I didn't realise how long it would take. It's tested my patience, but I think it's kind of paid off. So I'm going to sign off now, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, you can hit that like button, subscribe if you like, and also make a comment on the review. So I'm going to do my pleasantries now, guys, and take it easy.